Welcome to our first ever Joke Talk. I'm so excited for everyone to be here. I really feel like this is going to be such a fun and exciting continuous talk that we're going to be having throughout the month of September, mostly to obviously promote Join as an amazing collective that we run together with me, Sally, and Rebecca, as well as to just, keep the community alive, because I feel like it's been a while since we've all seen each other, and quarantine is still happening. So this is the best we can do, essentially. Sally, would you like to start off by explaining who you are?
Yeah, so my partner and I founded our studio, Fruitsuper, in 2008. And in 2011, we launched our first product. It actually just popped up on my Facebook memories today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 9 years ago today, we were at one of our first trade shows. And then we opened our first retail store in 2017, and then we just opened our newest store. We're actually celebrating our 1-year anniversary next week. So that's a little background. So that's why this is perfect for Mel and I to talk, because I have now experienced both sides of the wholesale spectrum, from both like selling to stores and now being a buyer for the last 3 years. So that's why we thought this would be a good thing to kick off for this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Want to give a little background on Join for anyone that's new?
Yes. Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, I'm Melanie. So, like I was mentioning earlier, me and Sally have been working together to do Join. And Join Design is a collective of independent designers around the U.S. And we do trade shows, pop-ups, and events around the U.S. and the world. We did one in Canada. Say the world. But essentially, generally around this time of year, we'd be in New York for a trade show called New York Now. And we actually have a small trade show coming up virtually that we would love for you guys to be a part of. And the applications for it end tomorrow, right?
Yeah, end of day tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's free, and it's this amazing opportunity for everyone to kind of be a part of. But yeah, that's what Join does. And me, myself, I am a designer as well. I make cork and wood products for the home, and I'm here in Oakland, California. And what else about me? I've been now working with Sally on Join for the past 4 years, maybe.
More than that, but
yeah, a while, too long. No, but the funnest way, and we have a lot of fun together, which is the greatest part. And we just added Rebecca, like I mentioned, last year, and she's been killer, just killing the game. But she and I have taken over the trade show portion of it, so that is what we have been doing. And then hopefully next year we can do, more galleries and pop-ups and things like that. But of course, it's going to be a little bit slower than normal. All right, so we are here. Sorry, there's trains. I don't know if you can hear that. There's a little train right next to my studio, so we can pause every time it goes through. But like I mentioned, we're here to obviously talk about wholesale and, what is happening in wholesale right now, what is not happening in wholesale, and just to, especially for anyone that is starting wholesale or wanting to start wholesale, we're just going to start from the beginning and then work our way kind of down to pretty much meet everyone's, world. And like I mentioned right at the beginning, if you do have any questions, just add them to the chat and we'll be looking at it throughout, and to make sure that, we have all of your questions answered. All right. So I believe we would like to start with, what is wholesale and how has it started your business, or how has it helped your business?
So we're gonna kind of skim over these first couple of sections quickly because we weren't sure what level everyone was at, whether you're like brand new thinking about wholesale or like you've been doing it for a few years and you just kind of want to get into the nitty gritty of like how it's different now.
Right.
But just quickly, like the difference, so there are essentially two outlets for selling your product. So direct to customer is you set up your website and customers go onto your website and order directly from you and you ship directly to the customer. And the alternative or additional is wholesale, where you sell directly to retail stores and online websites and various channels. So I would say for us, we immediately started wholesale and didn't have direct to consumer set up yet, which I know is a little, some people do it the opposite way, but we started with wholesale first and kind of established our customer base that way first. And probably I would say 1 or 2 years after we had a pretty good wholesale customer base was when we added direct to customer and added our own website. But Mel, I know you have like a little bit of a different background.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I feel like my whole entire business was not really planned. But I'm here now and I love it. But I mean, on that note, I did, I guess, direct to customer technically. So that also includes like craft shows and things like that. I did West Coast Craft was my first one. And then from there, I realized, I garnered interest in my products. And so I was like, how can I make a living off of this? And the first thing I thought is selling to stores. I didn't even know it was called wholesale. But I was, just kind of looking into that. And then that kind of got me interested in trade shows because I thought that'd be the best way to obviously show my products at a very large level. And that's when I contacted Join for the trade show, for the showcase that we do with New York Now. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, I really feel like trade shows or even just wholesale in general is a great way to get consistent income throughout the year, especially if you're new and maybe you don't have as big as a brand or even an audience. With that being said, like I feel like wholesale is really able to kind of, bring in money consistently in a great way where, you can start investing back into yourself and doing things like that. But that's kind of the reason why I went into it personally, because I was so small, I didn't know what I was doing. And, stores, they give you a lot of a leg up, press, all those things. It really does help. Okay.
I mean, one of the questions I wanted to touch on just briefly for anyone that is on the category of thinking about it or new to wholesale is just why wholesale? Because I know for us personally, we'd seen many of our fellow studio mates go into that like same path. And so it just seemed like that was the thing that we were supposed to do. And I don't know that we ever really sat down and thought about why we wanted to.
Right.
That would be my biggest bit of advice is like, make sure you really think about if you're the one that's making your own products, like, do you want to be making consistently the same product over and over and over again? Do you like the freedom of being able to dabble in like just a few of something?
True. Yeah.
And just really think about like how will your product be displayed? You lose a lot of control when you reach into the wholesale level, and it's not good or bad. Just make sure that you're kind of thinking about and writing that pros and cons list too, and also thinking about like the difference in pricing structure and being willing to give up those different margins and whether or not you're able to give up those pricing margins.
Yeah. Speaking of which, let's jump into that. So, do you like that? Okay. So
that was a good segue.
Structures for wholesale. Essentially, so for obviously like Sally was saying, you're self-making, you're manufacturing. What are you doing to create your products? I personally make all my products. I have a small percentage that I don't. And those are the ones that I really push for wholesale because at this point of being in business for about 6 years, it's true. When you are making your products, it's consistently happening over and over and over again, you do get a little tired of it. And that's just me being a little bit, how do I say, not as nostalgic about making anymore. But that being said, because the price point of my products is based on wholesale, what does that look like, Sally? Like, how does that be?
Well, we'll just do a really basic math structure of if you want your product to retail at $100, that it needs to wholesale at least at half that. So it would wholesale for $50, and it again divide that in half so that your cost for a complete and total finished product needs to be $25.
Right.
So your cost needs to be $25 for it to be able to retail at 100. And again, I don't want to delve too much into these first things, but this is where if you're new to this, make sure that you're not playing that game of, because I know we did this for our own studio of like, well, I can spend more time boxing things up and I can spend a little more time like making it and I can do all of those things because I have the time now. Because ideally you want to think about this in like your ideal world and scenario where like, let's say you just take off right away and all of a sudden you're getting orders and you're making like 200, 300, 400 units of something and you haven't factored in those time and costs, like just make sure you're not playing those little pricing games.
Right. Yeah. And it's really hard, especially at the beginning, because you don't even know
really hard
how long things take you or vice versa.
Oh, totally.
So it can end up becoming one of those things that takes way longer than it should. But
well, and we've all played those games where you're like, I can put on some podcasts and box stuff up, no problem.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, or you can do it while watching TV. I've done that a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, girls. Always. Okay, but yeah, so essentially it's about what a store like Fruitsuper shop pays is 50% of what that price is.
Yeah. All right, so jumping right into like how to reach out to retailers, and I want to add the disclaimer for all of these things that I'm going to give as do's and don'ts. I would say that our studio has been guilty of probably each and every one of these over the past 9 years, and that's probably one of the biggest ways I learned. It was immediately switching into buyer goal. I realized how frustrating and annoying it was to get information in so many different ways. So we're going to go through some of those, but just know that if you've done some of these, we've all done them. And all you can do is start from today and move on.
I know. I was really curious to hear what you had to say because as someone that has both a shop and your own studio, I know for a fact I've done so many things wrong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So as far as like getting into how to reach out to retailers, the first point I want to touch on is do your homework. And what I mean by that is like in our store now, we carry over 100 different vendors and different designers. So that means that I have like 100 different relationships on that end. And I would say probably the same as the reverse as our design studio. You know, we work with in flux, like give or take probably 100 different stores at any given time. So by do your homework, what I mean is spend the same amount of time vetting and searching for stores that you expect them to spend looking at you. So don't just quickly go through an Instagram and make a list of like, oh, there's like 800 small stores out there that should all carry my brand. Because really, like there are 800 stores that are a really good fit for you. There are probably like 60 to 120 that are a really good fit for you, where your values align, where aesthetically you align, a price point. So just spend the amount of time searching for stores or stores reach out to you. Spend the same amount of time that you expect them to spend looking at your work. Because I know, honestly, in the beginning too, we really thought that we should fit in anywhere and everywhere. And it took us like quite a few years to realize that A, it wasn't personal, B, we don't fit everywhere. And now it's, you know, and we'll have stores reach out to us now that we just don't feel like we're a good fit for. But that some of that comes over time.
And do you have any tips on how to find stores or even just like how you as a store find other designers?
Some of that, to be honest, we probably do. It's probably split between finding different, oh, I'm looking at this question. Okay, I'll answer in a second. It's probably a split between trade shows like West Coast Craft, Shop Object, New York Now, Renegade, Urban Craft Uprising, and kind of scouring those. And I'll both scour those to find other studios that might be a good fit for us, and also find stores, because a lot of stores follow those because they're also searching for brands. So it's pretty easy to search through who's following them, who goes to the, do just, I mean, that's an Instagram rabbit hole that's like, do that in the evening, save those accounts. And then I'd say the other half is probably just in digging, like it's Instagram rabbit holes and finding stores that I like their aesthetic, I like their brand values, and finding like these are the studios they carry, and then you look at those studios, you find the account. Right. Link up, it's just like,
yeah, I know. I feel like I find so many of my stores that, and maybe I'll approach or reach out to on social media now. It's pretty wild. But I used to just, I would look up articles, especially like go-to guides, for cities, because a lot of them, especially if it's a blog that you really like and they're design focused, but I don't know. I mean, there is a lot of different ways you could do it, but that's a great one. Do you want to answer Samantha's question? And do you want to?
Yes, that's a great question. I think that honestly, we will usually kind of use, and this is the same way that we turn down consultancy work or collaboration requests or anything that just doesn't feel like the right fit, is we're very honest and straightforward in saying that we're a very small studio and we have to choose very carefully and whose brand values align as closely as possible with our own. And usually, I mean, if you can say something politely and vague enough that they can imply their own information, that usually I've never had anyone push back. Either that, or if it's, to be honest with you, the only people we'll generally turn down are larger corporations and bigger, which in full honesty, if you would have asked me when we started, that would have been the dream, of like,
right, I know,
the places we want to work with. And we've learned over time that small stores hands down are the way to go. And we've personally not had very good luck with big business. So usually if we get emails from bigger businesses that we don't want to work with, we'll either set absurdly high minimums. It makes it completely and totally worth our
while. I'm doing it.
Or we just say that, that we don't think our brands align as well as they should. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that all definitely is helpful. What would be the don'ts if you were to reach out to a store then?
One of my biggest, most huge pet peeves is to not send personal DMs via Instagram.
I can't believe people do that.
It happens daily. It drives me insane. I immediately hide them. I would say, I think the biggest, and some of this is going to overlap between like how to deal with things during COVID versus not. And I'd say most of these are probably pretty consistent, whether it's now or always. It doesn't, again, do your homework, and it doesn't take that long to find out who the store owners are, what their names are.
Very true.
Rather than just dear or madam or hello, like it's not that hard to figure out what someone's name is.
Yeah.
I would say that you can always, like, let's say you have your wholesale mailing list. What we usually do is we send out our studio wholesale mailing list to our generic wholesale buying list. And then we go through individually and to our better customers or customers that we want to be our customers. We'll send individual emails that don't look like a generic. It's a more personal, and that's where you can take your line sheet and like, instead of your 30 items, you can say, I think these 6 might be a really good fit for you because I know your store, I know what you guys carry.
Right.
And you can cater a little more specific. I also think I love getting like a handwritten postcard, and that could just be a really simple, like nice image that has some really brief info. It could even have a QR code that someone just has to scan it and it automatically opens your wholesale catalog.
That's
or your
a
wholesale
good idea. I love that. I
portal.
feel like I used to send out my.
And that could just be, I'm thinking of you, or I'd love to work with you.
Right. Yeah. I love that idea. I used to send out my catalogs via mail, but I always felt like no one looked at them. But that's good to know that you guys do.
And that's why I like the postcard because it's cheap and easy. I mean, for like $100, you can send out a pretty big, you can send out to a pretty big mailing list. And then I would say one of the don'ts is don't offer to send free samples or products. I think there's nothing that devalues your own brand than like, And it's different if you want to send out like a color sample or a small swatch or a pack of something, like it's a scent, but don't offer to send like full-fledged, like a whole case of products, because it just devalues your brand in a way. Like, be proud, have ownership, and know that your product has value.
Yeah. And I definitely remember when I first started, I thought that was something you had to do. Like, I thought you had to send free product out, and it made me really nervous because everything I make is I have to produce it myself, and it would be so much work to do something like that. So that's good to hear, especially if you were just beginning. Like, that's not necessary. I think a great image in itself can speak volumes.
Yeah. The other couple of things that I want to touch on is I would never underestimate the power of really, really good images.
Yes.
And I don't mean like images taken with your phone, or like work with a proper photographer. Like, that was the biggest and best investment we ever made. And it, like, everything like, we were getting more press, we were getting more wholesale, we were getting more retail, good images 100 times down. And then especially now, and again, we'll go through this again when we talk about like now versus. I
know, but with COVID especially, I feel like imagery is more important than ever, because that's mostly the only way that people can even see the product.
Totally. I would say images and brand story are like your number one things right now. Because like your brand story and what makes you different, because I would say at the same time, we're like being really careful with our purchasing. We're also still looking for new brands, and we're having to be really calculated about who we purchase with. So I need to know why I should buy with you versus, if you're a jeweler, what makes you, not just your jewelry different, but what makes you different and your studio different than the 25 other inquiries in the last month. And just on a quick side note from us personally, the first thing I do is check someone's Instagram, and not only do I want to know what your brand story is, but I want to know what you stand for. Like, have you posted anything about social causes? Are you
right?
What is important to you? And if I have turned brands down that haven't made any efforts whatsoever to speak out as for what they stand for. Because what you stand for is also a reflection on what that store stands for then too. Is if I have 100 vendors that all, feel and look and act one way, how does that reflect on us as stores? So I wouldn't underestimate the power of like you using your voice.
Yeah, and that makes total sense too, because you're a very small store, and what you're offering to the public is different than what a West Elm would offer. And that's great to hear that you even look for alignment in that case, because that's great. Because I think there was a lot of the stigma in like the past, about if you are vocal about stuff like that, it can be seen as negative. But I don't see it as that way anymore at all. It's so polarizing. It's really hard.
Now is not the time to be quiet.
Yes, exactly. All right. So I wanted to kind of jump in a little bit. Thank you, Sally, for explaining all those things. I think that's super helpful. Just in general, if you do your homework and you find stores that you think are a great fit, and you reach out, I think that it's exactly that, and good imagery, like we were saying. So I'm going to jump in really quickly. Obviously, we're going to do some do's and don'ts for line sheet examples and catalogs. So we're going to be showing, I'm going to be showing my own line sheet and catalog, and Sally will be showing hers. They are a little bit old for both of us, but
it's like, I thought we just agreed that I didn't want to show mine.
Oh, you weren't going to? Okay, sorry. I'm going to show mine, and then I'm going to show another studios that is a part of Join. And
I can talk about why I don't want to show mine.
Yes, we can talk about why we shouldn't show yours. That's perfect. Also, Mackenzie asked a question about, I guess, like reaching out to shops and being able to obviously see if they're a good fit or not. We were going to touch on that at the end. Do you want to just?
I think what I would recommend is changing up how you reach out. Maybe try once an email, then maybe try a physical mailing, and then I would kind of let it. I would also be careful in sending in sending multiple emails and in your verbiage, because like I'm getting some now that say, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at, which actually even makes me feel a little guilty, like I haven't done something, and now it's like a list of things that I need to get to. So just be sensitive to knowing that everyone's overwhelmed right now and that everything is taking a little longer. So now is a little different in how frequently you should communicate. And we'll get into this again a little more later, but I would also say, I know personally we're going to be buying later for holiday, and I know most stores are as well. Like what I normally would have started planning in early September, I'll probably be looking at in October. So know that timelines are a little shorter now, just because we need to. I mean, cash flow is so much tighter, and everything is so unknown.
Yeah.
So how frequently you reach out should be a little less now than I would say the normal. But I'd say, honestly, if you have reached out like 2 or 3 times and have heard nothing back, I'd probably lay low for a while, keep them on your mailing list, but maybe don't send personal notes until you have like a new collection 6 months or a year from now, and then try it again.
Yeah, very true. Because sometimes it's exactly that. It's like being able to share something. Maybe what you showed them at the moment isn't exactly right, but you can create a whole entire new collection that they love. So that's actually great advice. Okay, I am going to share my screen, and please bear with me. I am not a tech whiz, so hopefully this will all work out, but we'll see. You guys are our guinea pigs. This is the first joint talk. Okay, so, all right. So this are a couple of line sheets that were from past designers, and I'm going to click on Ariane, and her brand is Avandi, and as you can see, hers is pretty clear. She has drawings and designs of her pieces as well as a wholesale, and then you can fill out as your own person the quantity and the total. How do you feel about this line sheet, Sally?
It's good, because the biggest thing that I was going to say, and this is why I was going to say don't show our catalog and line sheet from 4 years ago, is everything should be on one page. So there's lookbooks, there's catalogs, there's line sheets, there's all of these different ways and channels to get your information out. But the biggest thing that drives me nuts is when there's like a 30-page catalog with beautiful images and no pricing information, no minimum. So now I have to have like 2 documents open, go back and forth, try to find the SKU number, plus how many I have to order, plus find a picture of it. Like this is great because it's got the little illustrations. Instead of the illustrations, it could have images. But the thing a buyer wants to know like immediately, especially right now, is what are the minimums overall per order? What are the minimums per item? How much is each item? And then what are the variations? Like what are the styles and colorways?
Totally, yeah. And to
yeah,
be
get
honest,
the most pertinent information up front. And
yeah, I'm so guilty of that though. I don't put any of my prices on my catalogs at all.
I know we all did that for a while because we were trying to do save costs and use
exactly, yeah,
wholesale and retail.
Yeah. But would you just suggest making one strictly for wholesale and then having the one that's online retail? Because like that's my problem with it is I have one that's like public to online, and I don't want the general public to know the prices that are my wholesale prices.
Oh, absolutely. And that should be in like a password protected site. I think when we were doing that, we were literally printing like print catalogs for in-person trade shows. And now that everything is digital, like there's no reason to not have like your beautiful lookbook that's for direct to customer, and then have your like nitty gritty like business wholesale that can cut out a lot of the images. Like to be honest with you, the lookbook is nice and that can be a separate file, but have like 1 to 2 images because that's all a buyer needs to see to get it and to understand, and then everything just be info. Like when I'm looking at that beautiful picture, I want to know immediately like what the price is, what the minimum is, what the lead time is.
Okay, well, I'm going to really quickly show Ariane Avandi's catalog so you can kind of get the idea of what I thought. She did a great job because she pretty much, she has information about herself at the top, And then she obviously goes through each product per page.
So this is where on each page, I want to see the price and the minimums.
Okay, so that is where you need your own wholesale catalog.
Yeah, because otherwise I'm going to have to open two different documents. Yeah, but otherwise then you have to open two different documents and like reference back and forth and like.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, she has like, and then she has the information at the bottom, which is obviously super important. Okay, so
this is like a little different than, also it depends on if you want to work with any of the online wholesale platforms. That changes things up a little, like Candid, Bulletin, Fair, all of those treat your wholesale portal more almost like, it looks very similar to an online retail shop, except that it's password protected and only open to wholesale.
Yeah, and I love that exists now. Yeah, that makes it really easy, because I remember when I just first started wholesale, I really wanted to make a whole entire website based on for wholesale only, but I mean that costs so much more, and I feel like it's a lot better with like all the features that all these online things have now. It's pretty awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna show really quickly what mine looks like. It has more imagery, and then I'm going to really quickly show pigeon toes, because I feel like that's actually a pretty classic way of what a line sheet looks like.
Yeah, and I'm going to answer Samantha's question real quick, because she's asking if you do a trade show, do you have to have a wholesale catalog that looks like this? I say absolutely not. I would have asked me like 5 years ago, I would say you have to have something in print. But every year I'd say our print quantities went down because people just stopped wanting to walk around a trade show with 500 different catalogs in their bags. So we actually got down to the point where we had only been printing postcards that had like a URL link or a QR code to our wholesale. So I would say no. My personal feelings are, I'd say the print catalog is probably obsolete at this point.
Do you think that people should make them and like post them online though?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So still
I think a digital lookbook is great, because that's the one time you get to really fully control like how you see your brand.
Right. And that like what we were saying before, brand story is so important when it comes to obviously showcasing yourself to a store. Okay. So this is my line sheet. Obviously I personally, and I've changed it so many times, but it's like, cause I keep adding product. It's like most of my problem, but I am very visual person. So I have imagery instead of like a drawing. Also I can't draw, so that's out of the question. And
no, this is great. This is super clear, clean, easy.
Yeah. And then I started adding new little buttons so that you would know.
Because we started doing that in the last year too. I would say new or bestseller, especially now bestseller. If you have like a style, colorway, or something specifically that like is like a no-brainer no matter what store it is, like that's the kind of stuff I that's usually my first immediate question is like, what are your best sellers, which color, which size, what style, because now more than ever, like this is not the time for me to gamble and pick up like a huge line and try some things out. Like I need to know what.
Right. I mean, that's a great point, because to be honest, coming from like someone that is not a salesperson, but has to do this portion of my work, I always forget to put the sales cap on and think like, okay, this is what a store wants and what they need as far as it goes with getting to, get more information, or at least having something positive turn out, which is you purchasing something, right? But yeah, I can imagine a bestseller sticker. I thought new stickers are great. And it also showcases, I try to categorize everything by the collection, so you'd be able to easily look at that if you're looking for something specific. And my whole thing is I'm really big on material, so that is a huge portion of it. And then the one thing that Sally mentioned, because we did a little brief talk-in at the beginning, she was asking, what are your minimums, Melanie? And I was like, oh, they're at the bottom. And mine is just an opening order fee, and I don't have any minimums on product. So to be honest, I think it's really personal to each person. Like that is how I function. But I know, Sally, you have a minimum in each product, right?
Yeah, we don't have an overall order minimum, we have per product, but that's the kind of stuff, whether you're sending a handwritten postcard or an email or anything, I'd say those are your, a couple of your takeaways is one, give a quick intro to your brand story, why they should buy with you, what makes you different, and then have a link to whatever your wholesale platform is. And in that opening email, just say, different, like, do you have low minimums? Do you have low minimums per item? What's your, all of your terms, just have that right up front.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And to be honest, I actually have that written out, and I use a program on Google that you can add on called Candid. And so anytime a wholesaler actually contacts me, I'm lazy. That's just my MO. I have so many things on my mind. So I just click on the Candid email, look at the one that says under wholesale, and I send that right away. And it's a little bit personalized at the top, but for the most part, it says exactly what you just said. That way I don't have to keep rewriting that email over and over again. Okay, so obviously,
wait, hold on, Mel. Samantha has a question.
Sure, yeah. Sorry, I don't have my chat open, so because it's
so she's asking kind of how you can vet wholesalers if you have a wholesale platform like Fair or Bulletin or Candid. And honestly, I mean, I wish you could say that you could vet every person that's going to pick up a postcard, but I think I've had more orders come in from people that I had no conversation with whatsoever and just grabbed a postcard, left your booth.
Right.
There isn't really a way to do that. I think if you have an order that comes in automatically, that's where you can you can start the conversation sidebar out, whether it's within that platform or outside of it, and just ask a few more questions. Like from a brand standpoint, like from the selling side, I would say the biggest questions I'll kind of ask outside of like looking at someone's Instagram and website and kind of getting a feel for the store is what other brands do they carry? And if there's one that you align your brand with, then that's also a good way to kind of politely decline.
Yeah, exactly. Also,
like an order isn't an absolute, like it's a request.
And also I feel like the relationship between you and the buyer can take a very long time to create, in a way where I've had so many people have reached out to me. I've talked to them for at least a month before they place an order 6 months to a year later. And I feel like that just happens quite often, more than not, because, they're maybe not in the right moment to place that order or vice versa. And it is definitely the waiting game when it comes down to it.
That happens all the time. And it's funny, I'll answer an email that came in 6 months ago because now I'm ready. And I'll have a conversation like, oh yeah, remember how we chatted about that order? I'm ready now.
It's true. Okay. So I think those are great, actually explanations on line sheets and everything like that. I'm going to move on really quickly. So like we were mentioning before, obviously brand story is huge. And a lot of that has to do with obviously your catalog, now being online because of COVID, your actual line sheet, making sure it has all the nitty gritty information that you need to know before. So it can immediately make sure that the buyer in the store sees it. And then obviously your website. So I'm going to kind of go on to Fruitsuper's website really quickly. So you can kind of, obviously this is a great, sorry, I'm already on your mailing list. But this is a great example of what your brand, I feel like, embodies based simply on the first page. And it's really fun and exciting.
Thank you, Melanie.
You're welcome. So I'm just going to kind of go through this. And do you want to explain why you chose these images or how you made your website to kind of be a part of your brand story?
Yeah, and you can see, so we have kind of the split duality between like our studio and our shop, because our studio tells a little more about who we are, events that we have going on, our store, what our values are. Because I think one of the biggest things, aside from like having a really clear like anchor points of what your studio values are we spent a couple of years working with a marketing person who we now endearingly call our business therapist, but she had us sit down really early on and write other brands that we thought we aligned with. And just making that list and like really getting into why we thought our brand aligned with those brands helped us kind of define who we were. And then at the same time, you know, let's say you have this list of like, and maybe it's aspirational to start, maybe these are the 6 studios you align with, having like writing down what those values are for those studios, and then also digging into what stores sell them. That's another great way to build up a like aspirational list of wholesalers you'd like to reach out to is
Totally. I've definitely done that.
yeah, is to comb through someone. I mean, in full disclosure, we like probably studied yield for years and went through like what stories carry yield and what are they about and how do they communicate, and that's a great way to, Mel, when you move on to the studio page, just so this stops scrolling.
Yeah.
Okay. And Gianna's question, so she just started on Fair. Are either of you on it, and how would you politely decline?
You are.
I'm not on Fair. I think both Mel and I are on Candid.
Yeah, I'm not on Fair either. I'm not sure.
And so I don't know how it works. I know it because I use Fair all the time from the Wholesale platform. Like that's probably where I place the majority of our wholesale orders. But from Canvas, there is one step. Well, first of all, we have ours password protected, so people can't see it unless they've already reached out to us and gotten that. So that's a good way. So we're kind of pre-vetting in a way. But if there isn't that, we have a way once an order comes in that we can accept it or not. And I would say even, let's say someone just emails you, like they somehow just found your brand and email you an order. That's where you can still, even though it's an order, it's still a conversation starting point, and that's still a good place to ask the questions of what brands you carry, how did you find us, why are you interested in us, you know. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think that's an order is like a definitive, like to me that's just part of a conversation and you can decide on that or not.
Right. Yeah, very true. Okay. So yeah, I mean, obviously your about page, your imagery, everything about on your website, I think really explains who you guys are as Fruitsuper. And including collaborations and community, and of course going further down towards obviously like you even have such fun things about, you know, just your personal interests, which I think is great. And I personally would want to do more of that, but I'm proud of you that you do, because I never have time to. And I wish I did. And I feel like what I personally, for me, whenever that ends up kind of coming up, I want to like express myself more. I feel like my Instagram does that. And so I think
and that's one way of doing it. I mean, when we sat down to do the design for this website, I mean, we worked with a great team, but we essentially wanted to turn our Instagram into our website. So that's what we use this as like just an option of that.
Yeah. And obviously, you know, your imagery for your products are so beautiful. And I really feel like they do a great way of explaining how they work, which, you know, obviously is a huge portion of what we're going to be having to do nowadays since with COVID and everything like that.
No, so that I think we should jump right into like what's different now from a buyer and a seller standpoint.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest things I wrote down first and foremost is that I think now I would say my highest recommendation is to be really flexible on your minimums. I know we will probably be purchasing at, my best estimate is like 50 to 75% of our standard like holiday purchasing. So ideally I would still love to keep as many brands in the store and have a representation from
Sally?
Instead of like a $500 minimum, maybe it's like, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I think, you know, Wi-Fi.
Oh.
You pause for a second.
Oh, sorry. No, so I'm just saying I'd be as flexible as possible on minimums, just knowing that buyers are going to be buying both late and smaller quantities than normal. And so if you have the ability to be flexible on that and drop from, let's say your minimum normally is 500 down to even 300 or something, or especially with stores that you've worked with consistently, I think nothing will say, you know, like build your relationship more than saying like, and that could also be a really great way to start out and lead a conversation with an existing wholesale relationship, is just to kind of say, hey, I know we've normally had higher minimums. We'd be totally willing to have flex. We'd love to have you have some products for holiday.
Right.
Let us know what you're comfortable with ordering right now.
No, that's really true. That's really true. And I think the thing that Dave said, so we had a call with Candid about, you know, doing the virtual trade show we're about to do. And the one thing he said that I thought was really interesting is, okay, so here we are as makers, we were able to sell direct to customer pretty easily. But if stores want to keep, you know, obviously in business, they need to be purchasing during for the holidays. So I thought that was a really key point of just thinking about, you know, where people are going to be next.
And they will. I mean, stores are still going to buy. It's just going to be later, and it's going to be smaller, and it's going to be a little different. And that just knowing that, and flexible with that, which I think the other thing I have down now that's a little different is, I would say storytelling is more important than ever. And it's not just about your brand, it's about each individual product, whether it's everything from the care of the object to how it should be displayed, to how someone uses it, to whatever it is that you need to tell. Maybe it's the inspiration behind that product, because I know, I mean, we never had plans to have an online retail store outside of our own products, but we've had to switch and add most of the items we carry in our physical brick and mortar are now added to our online shop. And again, now, because we're relying incredibly heavily on both imagery and text, the more you can provide of that to the people you want to sell wholesale with, the better, so that they're not making up their own copy or their own story.
Right.
But B, it just makes it so much easier, because they're like, they can take that text, tweak it to their own language style, take their own images, use your high-res images, whatever you're comfortable with. But the more that storytelling is easier and passed on to the customer, the better.
Yeah. And would you want designers and studios to be able to share their own imagery for you to use?
I like a mix. We'll generally take our own like front images just so it can kind of stay consistent with our website. But
Right.
whether it's like, I mean, you can never have too many images, and we love being able to use people's images on Instagram, on stories, on Facebook, and newsletter, you know, and have extra images. Because in all honesty, we just don't have the time to take more than one, like probably one or two images per product. So if you have additional images we can add to that, that just means we're going to promote your product more and sell your product more and reorder more. So I would say the more you can provide, the better. And then again, ideally getting back into that, the more a store can promote your product specifically, the more they're going to sell them and keep reordering.
Yeah, and we have another question about the best way to share the inspo story with retailers, especially if it varies from collection to collection.
I think that could be it. And like, that's where you get into that, like a nice personal email.
Mm-hmm.
And don't go, like, as much as we're talking pretty heavily about brand story, that again, that can be something that you're doling out in pieces on your Instagram and your social media and your newsletter. And then it's like one or two sentences. If we're talking about an opening intro email to a new wholesaler, keep it brief. But if it's a return customer, then you can tell a little bit longer of a story because you already have an established relationship.
Mm-hmm. And Sally, for some reason, your video is paused. I can still hear your voice, but would you mind starting your video and stopping it again, just in case?
Yeah, let me stop it and then.
Did that work?
Not yet. We'll just keep talking while I see if I can get this to work.
No worries. Okay, so Diana asked, how do you feel about using MailChimp?
So a couple other things.
Oh, keep going. Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, and I'll get to that question in a sec. So I would say if you have any capability of shortening your lead times, and I know that's a little trickier for anyone that makes their own products, and that's where I would like probably invest a little more time into, and everyone knows that things are different right now. So if you have a catalog of like 60 items, I would pick your best sellers and stock up on those a little and have those pre-made and ready. Because again, knowing that people are going to be buying much later this year, they're going to want shorter lead times, because I'm not going to want to order in October and not be able to get it until end of November. Like I'm going to need it. Because now I've already been reading several articles about consumers and them being really nervous about all of this language and what they're hearing about USPS and lead times. And so I think people are going to be ordering a lot sooner, which means that window of like from when a buyer gets it into the store and when a customer wants it in their home is going to be really short. So have your lead times down to like under 2 weeks, that's going to be really key. And that's a really big selling point, because you can keep sending those emails out to your wholesalers like through November and say like, I'm still ready to I got stuff in stock, it's ready to ship. Because all of those things that make you different and give you an advantage above different studios is things just like that. Even saying I have stuff in stock right now ready to ship. Like
yeah, I can imagine that being really helpful for a store to know that information as well.
And then from a non like buyer perspective, but more from as a fellow designer that sells wholesale, I would give the advice of saying that now is not the time to take on any terms, like no net 15, no net 30, no consignment, because in full harsh reality terms, you're not sure that those stores are going to be around. And so what you want to do right now is send out product and never see that money come in.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say, unfortunately, this is the time where you take all payment upfront regardless.
Yeah.
That's established like a really long and established relationship. And even with a couple of those for us, we've been taking like half upfront.
Yeah, but just to make sure
we're not totally,
that makes sense. Yeah, because it costs us money, obviously, to producing these things too. And I think that's the really hard part about not knowing.
So I think I've lost video because now it's like frozen, so I don't want to mess with it anymore, so I don't get totally lost from this.
No worries. Well, we will just be looking at your face.
Okay. Hopefully I'm not frozen in some horrible.
It's not. It's cute. It's cute.
All right, everyone look away from that.
I tried to stop your video earlier, but
can't you do this?
Yeah. Let's see if I can make mine a speaker view.
Okay, and in the meantime, what was Diana's question?
Yeah, I think your video doesn't show anymore, Sally.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, I'm still well, maybe it's just me then. Then it's just me. Which is unfortunate. You've been speaker new. I can't see her either. I can't see Sallyann. Well, Sally, you're gone. Ah, we can see you again.
Can you see me?
Yeah. Okay, well, we actually only have about 5 more minutes. Sorry for everyone I knew this was going to happen. Technology, right?
Hey, we got pretty far.
But that's great to know as far as it goes about what you think as far, your personal experience as a store and brand on what is happening with COVID. Because I've been curious, because to be honest, like it makes me really nervous to even be doing a ton of wholesale, especially with so many stores that have gone out of business.
Yeah.
Breaks my heart.
And that's what I know. The only thing I was going to add, one last thought on that, is just know that buying patterns have changed because ordering patterns have changed. Like when we first started sales, like in March, like everyone was ordering surprise kits, care packages, all of these things that were like, and that came to like a screeching halt, and it kind of just shifted to like, oh, I need some stuff for my house,
Right.
that's going to keep changing. So know that even though you might have a store that you've been working with for years, like they're trying to stay one step ahead, and things might have just changed a little. So it's not personal, and just again, and that's where all you can do is try to tell your story and try to say what makes you a little different, whether it's everything from short lead times to low minimums to great images, and why someone should order with you versus the other studios.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Well, that makes total sense. And well, Sally, thank you so much for being a part of the Join Talk, for kicking it off with me. I think this
was so fun. I can't see all of you, but I like knowing that you're there.
Yeah, I know. Me too. It's been great being able to kind of dive into the world of wholesale and just what to expect. Any last words to give?
No, I mean, feel free to send me an email. I can't promise that I'll get back to you right away, but we'll try. And I know we're going to record this, right, and then share it. So if there was any stuff that we glossed over a little too quickly, you can listen to it again. And then, Mel, do you want to touch on the virtual trade show and the upcoming talks?
Yeah. So obviously, your video has stopped again, and I know that you won't like this photo, so I'm gonna pin mark it. Okay. So as far as it goes with what's happening next for Join and everything like that. Thanks for it's true. We have our virtual trade show, and that's going to be happening at the end of September. And we are accepting applications, and the due date is tomorrow. So it is on the 28th of August. So tomorrow, please, I believe on the exhibitions page on the Join website, you'll be able to see how to kind of go in and fill out that Google form. But we are going through it now, and we are so excited. We see so many amazing designers that are applying. And,
and there's on there, essentially it's free. So there's really no reason to not give this a try.
Yeah, it's
level
so
you're at.
It is free. So we are excited to be offering it to you guys. And then the rest of this month, well, not August, but September, we are going to be having a couple other talks. Next week is going to be with Tyler Koenig, and he is an amazing copywriter and marketer, and he's a really good friend of mine, and he has been helping me with my own captions, and I kind of convinced him to come on and talk to us about it, because what he has to say is so important and so great. And I really feel like it's really simple ways of making sales for obviously the holidays as that comes up a lot easier, because then you can use obviously what we write through social media, you can make ads through that, and we're going to be diving into that a little bit too. But yeah, we're just hoping that these talks and these informative information will be able to be given help you guys out when it comes to sales and getting 2020 ending on a great note, because currently it kind of sucks. So I am hoping that is what we're going for. All right. Well, thank you again for everyone for joining in on our first Join Talk. Please send us an email if you guys have any other questions. And like Sally said, we will get back to you, but it might be a while. And yeah, thank you. And obviously, if you are on our Instagram at Join Design on Insta, then you can find out more information. And Sally's information is at Fruitsuper, and mine is at Melanie Abrantes Designs. Okay, well, thank you guys again.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm ending it. Okay.